Blue. That track you're hearing is Sylosis' Callous Souls. Yeah, it's just a thrash metal track that is also really cool. Some interesting groove metal, and then there's obviously like true like Sylosis fashion, at least for the older tracks. There's like these very what do you call it? Uh, Almost symphonic, but I don't know if that's the term. Like very harmonious bridges, I guess. It's like so unique. And yeah, there's so much to like about this track. It's like very groovy for a thrash metal track, and quite heavy as well, both lyrically and even just the instrumental. Obviously, it's like a crazy good composition too. So many unexpected like, turns and stuff in this. And yeah, I just love this track, much like every other Sylosis track. There's obviously something this also makes it stand out above others too. I think the solo was also one of the points of the soloites, as well as that sort of small breakdown before it. Yeah, the solo is a fucking amazing introduction because it sort of takes place over the breakdown. Yeah, and it continues over it. Which is also really insane to hear on a solo. Like, what? It's crazy. Obviously, this is Josh's genius at work. Uh, yeah, I don't know what else to add, it's just such a good track. I think if you're a metalhead like myself, then you'll probably find this great. Anyway, let's move on to the first topic. I'm tired, man. Again, like a 5 hours sleep, but that's what I'm going to talk about. It's actually something kind of relevant to a lot of the problems that I find, and it's about the fact that the older generations, the older they get, the worse that their mindsets can become. And I don't know if anyone else has experienced this, but based on a lot of the other stories I've heard from people, it is real. This is actually a thing where people put up all sorts of barriers depending on their age. It's like 40 plus people, you know, that age range, or maybe even 30 in some cases as well. There's like a stubbornness to them, and on top of that, just nonsensical opinions and just not making much sense, like double standards as well. And one of these YouTube shorts I saw from Now This Impact, I believe it's called, I can't remember what it's actually called now. There's someone called two cops on two black children who were selling lemonade outside. What? It's just pure fucking insanity. And they're not even harming anyone, not even doing anything illegal in that sense. Like, it's so fucking bad. And this is the sort of mentality that people have. And literally a bunch of the comments reflecting what we all think are just like, they say that children need to go outside more and be more productive. And then when they do that, they get fucking punished. They get the cops calling on them. It's just, some things don't make any fucking sense. Like, I have to admit as well, I didn't go out on the streets a lot as a kid. I literally stayed indoors playing games. Because that was just the best pastime I could have. And that was in itself a pleasure and a joy. Although that had some problems, but it was good. It was better for me, and it distracted me from all my problems, essentially. So, when it came to getting outside and productive, I was just incapable of it. And anytime someone older would say, like, oh, you need to get off your arse and do something, I'd literally just be like, no. There's nothing for me to do out there. Because there literally wasn't. My mental health would be at stake. So many different things would be in trouble if I went out. That's why I don't do it. And ironically, this comes from the same age range as I just mentioned. And that really demonstrates something there. Yeah, it is a huge problem at the moment that children cannot get outside, and are not getting outside as often as they probably should. I will admit that you got a point about there not being enough children outside anymore, like playing or whatever it is. But the world is becoming more unwelcoming to them. I imagine there's a lot of autistic children who can't actually go outside because, well, what do you know? It's too inaccessible. So, they do not want to go outside because it's too inaccessible. And that's a term that not many people that age range, as I mentioned, even are aware of. Accessibility, to be very clear, means to make something easy to access. And you might think, what do you mean going outside is free? Not to some people. Autistic people have to wear headphones, specifically like noise cancelling or earbuds, just to block out all the loud noises that can appear and cause like major distractions or discomfort. So that's one of the things, and people really need to understand this instead of playing the ignorance card, like, oh, I don't care what you say or think, it's my opinion. Yeah, your opinion is shit. It always will be, so long as you don't come to accept it. Or to accept what the actual reality is here. So it's just complete garbage. But again, it's like a typical thing for this age range, and I see a similar thing in my own personal life as well. Again, saying like, why are people all on these phones all the time? They're on the phones because it's a fucking better distraction than the outside world. And with admit, like the parenting aspect of it, yeah, I think you shouldn't be parenting whilst on your phone. Like, it doesn't make sense. I see too many parents on their phones, like not really doing much for their children. And sometimes they're like screaming and stuff, and they don't do anything. They're just stuck on their phones. It's just ridiculous. I think that's kind of a problem that needs to be addressed. I'm not exactly sure the right solution, but again, I'm likely missing something from this myself, more so than the people saying this is a problem. Because I just wonder like, if it's like anxiety or what. Like, there's literally so many things that could be going through your head at that time when you're obviously sunk into your phone. But mainly I'm not even someone who pulls out my phone in public. In fact, I think it's too dangerous and stupid to do that. Because you never know, like someone could just swipe past and grab your phone and it's like an iPhone. A new model or something. And it's like super expensive obviously. And then it's just gone. And I never see that thing again unless you have some sort of tracking on it. That's kind of the danger and the risk of it. And then people get out their phones for some reason and put them out, and then lose it. Like, are you fucking kidding me? It feels like sometimes there's truth to what is being said, but other times it's like complete ignorance. It's like both sides here, right and wrong. And again, it's like, shit, that just doesn't make sense to me. It's never made sense, to be honest. Yeah, it's like increasing frustration around that scenario and just all the issues that people keep making up really, because that is what it is at the end of the day. I think it is just people making up and trying to find excuses to blame someone else. Ironically, the same crowd of like anti-migrant people, as I have to keep mentioning this, and we shouldn't forgive them by the way, the same crowd would say that young people are not working hard enough. Which is really fucking rich, given that they never had to work. In fact, never had to work hard, for that matter. I think that's an important distinction to make. So a lot of the times these older generations who are saying this sort of shit are just completely ignorant of the fact. Again, it's like an older generation thing, but this isn't to say that every single old person is like that. It's actually, there are actually cases rather where that is not actually a thing. Some older generations are actually smarter than others. I've definitely met like older people who understand stuff like animal rights and veganism and are not like ignorant of it. In fact, some do accept it even despite stubbornness. again, it really varies, and there is that double standard there. So you want things to be the way you want to be, but not how it should be for those people. It's just such a backwards thing. It's like if I went to school, like now, with like the things I needed, like noise cancelling headphones, yeah, I'd be accepted as that. But if I went to school like that when I was younger, I'd be told to take them off. I'd be fucking put in detention. The times obviously do change, sometimes for the better and for the worse. But you can't ignore the fact that accessibility is a huge issue and is the primary reason why children likely don't go outside anymore. It's no doubt one of the biggest causes of staying indoors. Not to mention, there's a lot of unsafe things out there, and I think parents would feel safer knowing their children are behind a computer screen rather than with, for example, a neighbour who, believe it or not, I do have an anecdote about this, but a neighbour who can be abusive. And that's, again, like, it's far less painful to go through, say, like gaming experiences than having a child be confronted by a very dodgy neighbour. So, again, as I said, that happened to me. I was more of a witness to it, but I was witness to some, I wouldn't say horrific abuse, but it was bad. It's still one of those you could just think, oh god, that's terrible. Yeah, I do think there is a discussion to be had here, and the biggest point to make is the older generation just need to fucking get their heads out of the sand and start acknowledging things, start acknowledging that times are changing, for starters, and that children have to have more additional needs. That's just inherently true now. It's not going away anytime soon. That's why a lot of the times there is this ageist sort of narrative going on with a lot of the people now, where people are just so fed up of hearing these old people making these excuses for why they think a younger generation is stupid or bad. And they just keep hammering down on it for no reason. Like, for sure, I have my own issues with the generations of not just like mine, but today. And there are many issues, to be clear. But you're not going to solve them by essentially using them as a punching bag, let alone making it the way you want it to be. That's just fucking ridiculous. And even then, you should just be more accommodating. You should try to understand. Again, like these very real issues where they're like buried in their phones or headphones. You need to ask, like, why do you do that? Like, why are you on your phone? Like, you can ask these questions, and I think some people would answer if they want to. And I think it is a valid question to ask too, no doubt. But you also can't be putting out there an opinion without forming where that opinion is from. So if you hear something like, oh, fuck off, like, okay, these people are rude. That's true. You can see that. Those people on the phones can be rude. That's for sure, but it's not everyone. And I suppose, what's the other thing I was thinking of? You get someone who responds to it rationally, and it'll be a different response. It'll be like, I just struggle with anxiety, and having a phone helps. Lets me focus away from it, and that's probably something that happens more often than you think. And obviously that's why that happens. Merely too many people are glued to it, which is itself another issue, but using that as a way to get around it is far easier, and anyone with actually a brain would have said, at least of the generations I mentioned, would have said like, oh, you could just bring like a games console with you. And that's a good suggestion. In fact, there's probably less value in a games console than there is a mobile. As long as the games console is obviously portable, and it's ideal for those sort of situations. And again, if it's like affordable, that's another thing, because it all ties into each other, really enough, these conversations. But the younger generation is not being paid as much, so that's why you end up encountering these sort of things, and why you even see something like shoplifting being commonplace. So yeah, I don't really know what else to add there. I think the most important point I made is probably they shouldn't be viewing younger people as you would want to view them. You should be viewing them as what they need. They need to essentially survive and live. It's far more important than anything else. Even the crappy music I hear from them. Which yeah, I have my own gripes about, and I've actually complained about tons. You know, that's another issue itself, so it's not really for me to decide whether that's right or wrong. It's just whether they can actually like accommodate each other, like whether we can support each other as well. Because that's important too. I think that's where a lot of this sort of narrative goes missing. You sort of lose that a perspective of what do you even call that? I don't know. But you just lose that perspective of having a human connection and you start assuming things about people. It's kind of the same way that homophobia and transphobia spreads. You know, again, you run off assumptions, but you don't actually do any sort of valid research on this. And that's the difference as well. The difference between the younger generations and the older is the younger generations are going to be smarter. And the reason why that's always said too is because that is actually true. We are information generations, I call it. And we're surrounded by this stuff. It's everywhere. And information is our power, essentially. That is how we function now. Obviously, times have changed. That's why you see people who are vegan rather than vegetarian. That's why you see people more open about their sexualities. It's because information is power. This is why they also want to burn and ban books rather in certain places around the world. Also ban the rights, but that's not going to go away. And again, this is like an older person thing. They really do not fucking understand that people like this will always exist. Yes, including trans people. They're always going to exist, no matter what you do to double down on them or remove their rights and remove their existence. They're always going to prop up again and again. That's the harsh reality of it. And that's again another reason why older people just should be deciding the rules here. And assuming things as well. Just inherently true. There's no refuting this at this point. Yeah, I don't really know what else to add there. Again, I do think it's really important, so anyway, I better move on. Got lots to do today actually, going out for about 6+ hours or so, which is insane. Bit worried in a way because of my bowels, but should be okay, hopefully. So yeah, let's move on. I can't remember if I mentioned this actually, it's because I finished it. But the main thing is that there's no like critical thinking. They're not equipped with again the information and the skills that we would have today, which have also led to both expansions for better and for worse. You know, just everything, technology. Well, it's mainly technology. It happens, but you know, understanding as well. It's no doubt one of the big things. We wouldn't have known, you know, heart disease and like cancer risks without a generation who favoured information over everything else. And there's sort of that thing which I come back to every now and then to mention, which is just because you don't understand it, it doesn't mean it's wrong. Same way that some people can't wrap their heads around a globe Earth, even though we have demonstrable evidence about it. A globe Earth is like 100% real. We can prove it by the measurements we make and the angles and the axes of the Earth and the seasons. There's just so many things that contribute to it and that prove it. So, but even then, the space journeys we've had, the people who put stuff into space, like mini rockets with cameras, there's just so much evidence. And again, information is on our side. And we'll do well to obviously heed that information and derive from it what good we can take with the least amount of consequences. So that's also very important. But that's the difference between these generations. So yeah, that's it. So let's actually move on now. Well, this is the first time I've been on a train in at least, I'd say 8 years, by my count. I can't even remember the last time I was on one. But, you know, in the UK, trains are kind of sketchy in ways and not so much in others. And, you know, the experience I was like panicking about last night because I only got 5 hours sleep. And we were visiting someone as a family, and you know, someone we had never met before, which is, you know, fair. I'm going to be nervous, so just sort of accepted the fact that I'm sleep deprived and went anyway. I was worried about my Crohn's disease, obviously, and luckily it didn't fuck me up. At most, I had to like piss twice whilst out, and this was like an 8-hour fucking trip, which was like 9 hours actually. No, I'm wrong. But left at 10, got back at 6, so yeah, it's about 8 hours actually. Probably a bit more, but it is kind of crazy. I just don't like how long it takes to be on the train, because the trip could have been shortened by, as I've said before, by about an hour or two by having bullet trains or speed trains, whatever you fucking call them. And it's a big issue in itself, the fact that we don't already have this system. And it doesn't make sense given that we're quite an industrial country. It genuinely makes no sense to me. Like, what the fuck is going on? So anyway, I got a train with people. Obviously, I couldn't do it alone. I'm too fucking nervous for that. And then we had to fucking figure out which carriage we were in to meet the others. And because they weren't specific, we had to fucking find them. And the first thing we noticed when we got on and we tried to move through the place to find them is the fucking doors didn't work on the carriages as in the inside ones. The ones where it changes. Like, I don't know what to call it exactly. But it's fucking insane that doesn't work. Like, what? How much are we paying this system and they're not even doing that? They're not even fixing it. So what we ended up having to do was to get someone else that we knew there to obviously help us in, because that's the only way you can open them, it seems. And then they got locked out because of the stupid system being broken, and we had to get someone else to open that door. Like, what the fuck is going on? It's just such a disaster, and the worst thing as well was that the train was starting to move as we were doing this. As we were navigating this fucking place, and that was a bit of a panic because I was like really shaky. I've never been on a train. I've been on trains actually online, but I hadn't been on one in so long, so I wasn't sure what to expect and how the balance would be. And also I've put on weight since, so I'm gonna have some issue. And luckily it wasn't so bad, but still, there were some glaring issues about the train itself and the train system. I'm not sure about tickets. I think they're a bit weird still. I don't fully understand why we have it. I know we need to pay workers, but at the same time they don't need to be that expensive. Like, Jesus Christ. People could travel more if they were less expensive, I reckon. So that was a bit weird. Then the next thing that's very strange is getting in the train. No, actually it's locating the train. So obviously it has like a terminal, and you see all this stuff, trains on this terminal thing, which is handy. Problem is, you absolutely need to know where you're going, otherwise you'll get lost. And because I had no clue, also had help with this, I didn't really know what to expect and what to look for. So we had that sort of weird, like, I had a bit of panic about it rather, about what train it was that we were actually getting on, because I didn't know. Again, I hadn't taken one in fucking ages, so I wasn't sure. But we managed it anyway, knew where to go, found the location. But we had to obviously separate it at a certain point, because the problem is with the system is that there's no direct trains to the place we were going to, so we had to get off at another station, and that happened. But as for the train cots, I still have fucking problems with these. They're so fucking gross. They're so tight when you navigate the seats and stuff. I'm just not a big fan of that. It's too tight for me, and that means it's an accessibility issue, not to mention wheelchair users. Literally, you can't even get on there. I don't even know why they even bother with having that sort of seating arrangement. It's a bit weird, it's so fucking tight I can't even fit through it. You just need to walk like sideways, or almost sideways. The amount of seats I hear when I try to find the other group. That's fucking nuts. Ugh, I hated that. That was awful, and we made better decisions after that to obviously go to a car and just take a seat wherever we see it, really. Sounds like a good strategy. What else is there? I'm trying to think. There was something else. But yeah, there's also like a terminal thing, but not obviously as detailed in these trains. Quite early technology, I think. Oh yeah, the noise as well. Like fuck. Outside noise, horrible. Stop beeping the fucking horn. I don't know why trains do that. It's so ridiculous that they even do that shit. It's so fucking unbearable. But inside, it's actually decent. I was quite surprised about the noise there. I mostly hear like the grumbling of it. I don't know what to call it actually. That was like the worst, and it wasn't too bad in all honesty. It's like I could cope with. Whereas the noise I probably couldn't. Except for when a train passes, that's actually kind of bad. It does sound louder because obviously there's more sound bouncing off and stuff. So I wasn't a fan of that, obviously. What else? What else am I thinking? The seats, dirty. I do not like the way they've done the seats. I personally think it's a bit gross, and I don't know if maybe they have like cleaners or anything. If they don't, it's concerning. But even the tables are a bit sort of manky in areas. So, I don't know. It just felt very strange to me having that. It just felt like it was behind in a way. Felt like there could have been more done there in terms of cleaning and just better seating, to be honest. Also, there's way too many like different seating areas. Like you got the ones with like 2 each side, and then you got the ones with like 6 on one side and 1 on the other, or 2 on the other. Actually, that's one of our cases. Actually, we had 6 and then 2. But it's a bit of a strange thing. See, I wasn't a fan of the seating arrangement, and as for like position, I get the sort of 4-seat and 2 or 6-seat are facing each other, and also some of the 1-seats. But at the same time, I wish they were just sort of forward facing a bit more. That's one of the things I sort of miss in that, and I've got a forward facing seat on the second train, but I was just missing out on so much scenery. And even though it's fucking good scenery, like some of the best I've ever seen in my lifetime, I didn't expect it. One of them was like a city, and it's fucking insane. Like, I don't want to spoil where I went, but Jesus Christ. It's genuinely insane what I saw there. I didn't even think it was humanly possible for that. But obviously I loved it. I love seeing the views. Admittedly, I was almost close to getting on my phone, but there were still some interesting things to see. They even saw like a bloody cathedral in the distance, which was also crazy in a plane landing. Like, those are like very rare, I think, anyway. And also, given that I don't see much of that to begin with, it was also quite a pleasant surprise. So yeah, the views, honestly, one of the biggest things about that, except if you're obviously not on the inside where you can't view it as clearly. But I almost wish there was like a, I don't know, like maybe like a TV screen thing where you can actually focus on it. That'd be great for like children and stuff, so they can actually see over people, or just focus on something. And yeah, there were a few kids in the trains as well. I was just also kind of surprised about. Not massively old, but given it's a weekend, yeah, it's just one of those things. In terms of crowd, it wasn't as bad as I thought for a weekend, but like I realised that the pricing of the tickets being a bit stupid, it sort of meant that it's inaccessible to some anyway. So, rip. Like people complain, like, why don't we go outside anymore? A £20 ticket is not a good reason to go outside. Like, admittedly, a go and return ticket, but still not ideal, in my opinion. Oh yeah, Ticketmaster, we also had those. I think it was alright to have a Ticketmaster, but I'm also a bit confused because it's kind of like, but what if you're in a rush and what if you forgot to get a ticket? Like, what happens then? And I even saw this advertisement about not having a low battery just in case you lose your ticket. And I don't even know what happens if you lose your ticket in that sense. Kind of scared to find out. So it's a bit of a backward system, especially in this day and age. I mean, you can just go off of, oh, like, we're a Ticketmaster, we can give you one. But I don't know if they can actually do that. So it's a bit confusing. Trying to think, is the other things? Switching, like, again, depending on the station you go to, it can be hard to read what you're trying to find. Because where we had the switch, we went from, obviously, hometown to city to another town. And that ended up being a bit more trouble than it's worth, in my opinion. Again, sort of means, or rather wish that there were sort of trains where you can actually go to and from, like, just straight there. I mean, you have buses that do that, but I don't know if they're even worth that much effort. Like, buses are fucking horrible. I hate buses. I guess I have to compare the two as well by the end here. But I'm not sure if there is anything else to talk about. I don't like touching buttons. Did try the toilets because I didn't need it, but they look too small as well. Are they? I don't know actually. I remember the last time I went in one was probably, again, 8 years ago. But I don't know, I feel like it's kind of small either way. The doors, I don't like how there's so many buttons as well. It's a bit weird, a bit kind of, it's like my OCD was like off the charts during this, I will mention that. It's like, I'm touching a seat, I'm touching a table, I'm gonna sanitize myself when I get home. It's genuine torture. And that also plays part in that, I see what I've said with the cleanliness of it all. Yeah, I don't really like there's not really many non-contact things, and also that's the other thing, the bumpiness of the ride. Jesus Christ, I don't forget that. Also, I still feel like, I don't know if it's vertigo, but I feel something now, even as I'm just sitting still in my usual chair. It's fucking weird. Absolutely crazy, in all honesty. It's such a weird experience, but the bumpiness of trains is unbearable. I genuinely don't understand how some of them even function like this, because it feels so backwards. It genuinely feels like the system is outdated, and again sort of means that we need bullet trains, just for starters. It's a crazy amount of discomfort for what it's worth. And, an hour and 30 minutes each trip was, by the way, somehow. Although one was actually 1 hour and 15. But because of the switch, it was like a bit longer, and also even then, the switch that we did initially was like, that for some reason was longer, even though we had less, like a bigger waiting time on the other one. I don't know what the fuck happened there. Timing as well is also kind of interesting. The timings on the one that went to the city before the swap was actually like before expected time. But obviously the ones we were switching on weren't the expected or due time rather. So that was also a bit weird. Strange, on top of the bumpy experience, like, weird. I'm not exactly sure how to feel about it all. I do find it bizarre, that's for sure. What else? What else is there? Oh yeah, some trains are up to date, even though they don't feel it. But there are like plug sockets and USBs every now and then. So that was an interesting experience. But wherever we went, the destination, we got there. And yeah, I had an okay time. It's a bit overwhelming in some places, obviously, because of the journey, but the place we ate at was fucking great. And Indian food, some of the best I ever fucking had. Crazy. Obviously, they had vegan options. I wouldn't go there if they didn't. But a crazy nice place as well. It's very interesting. And then obviously the return trip. And this is where like, you get sort of the bad experiences as well, because it's about the people you encounter with this trip as well. And there was a bit of it that spoiled it for us, really. Well, for me specifically, but for everyone else, they're kind of like, I don't care about politics. Yeah, you probably know where this is going. I won't spoil one of the big things, because it did actually make a headline, but I wasn't there, obviously, to see it. It wasn't criminal, just to be clear. But it is a good thing, I will say. But we faced that, sort of. It's quite interesting to see there was a queue outside the toilets at the train station, that busy. Like, bigger queue than you might have thought. It's very strange. Ended up skipping that and going to the train for the toilet instead. Another one we were due to go on. Anyway. No, but the way back, we stopped off at another stop because we had to switch 2 fucking times. So we got off at one place and, waiting there, and suddenly some dickhead with 2 girls comes along with a British flag along his back. Yeah. But I couldn't believe how young they were. Like all of them. They looked about 20s, like early 20s. But that's also like one of the most fucking heartbreaking and shameful things I've seen. To see someone like that, and I posted this on Blue Sky, but they were literally saying things like, the lefties will be mad at us and they'll have our hits for waving this flag. Which is just fucking insane. This is what social media is doing to people. It's literally corrupting their minds. And these are people supposedly of my generation as well. Like, I'm 29, but they're probably very close to where I am. I don't know if they're like 25 or what. Certainly young. But they're too young for this, that's the thing. And do they even realise how much they're compromising their fucking future to begin with, let alone my own? That's why it's also simultaneously heartbreaking also to see women as well standing with this shit. When they themselves are not getting protections under Unite the Kingdom, Reform, Restore, whatever the fuck it is at this point. And annoyingly, these dickheads also were on the same train as us, which wasn't great. Didn't encounter them, but we did see them when we got off at the next stop, and the next switch off, I don't know what to call it, but ironically that's where also the other headline comes in from earlier, which I don't want to go into details about. I could say that they're police there actually. The weirdness with that, actually I forgot to write that. I do keep a journal of things, but yeah, for some reason recording police using a notch. I don't know what the fuck that's about. I don't know, it's just some people are strange sometimes. I don't know why they do that sort of thing. But yeah, the air conditions in trains, it was actually surprising. It was kind of warm, but not. We had like 20-degree weather where we were going, and we had a few like bouts of coolness here and there. So it sort of worked, I guess. Sort of had its like thing, I guess. I don't know what to say. It can be cold, but it can be warm as well, and it's just that's the problem with trains. Same with buses. Buses can have the same issue, I think. Like buses can get extremely warm, but trains, they're okay. All the way home, though, I did see a anti-fascist sign somewhere just laying around. Don't know how. Almost took a picture of it, but I don't know. It felt a bit awkward. But yeah, overall, I don't think it was really a worthwhile trip, honestly. I hate to say, even though there was obviously some good to come out of it in ways like the views and meeting people, again, it was just a bit overwhelming in a lot of ways. Again, the big thing is that time is wasted here. Oh, I really wouldn't have gone if I had known it had been so long out. I would have wanted to be home. Merely, I could take break from hobbies, but I feel a bit overwhelmed when it's too long out, and also seeing that shit. Like, this is why I don't feel safe in the streets anymore. Because you have the people here who are like raising flags and literally telling migrants to fuck off, even though there were migrants actually around the platform. But they didn't seem to bat an eye, which was interesting. So I don't know. But that definitely makes me feel compromised in terms of safety. Oh yeah, that was a weird thing that happens. I wasn't sure what was happening, but some teenagers with some water gun or something came up behind us, behind my group and stuff, and started shooting it at the posters in the train station. I don't know what the fuck that was about. Extremely strange, and even stranger as well, like, one of them, or rather two of them actually, I think, were fucking migrants. Yeah, they didn't sound English to me. But, the Kingdom people didn't even fucking clock that, and it's absolutely rich. They just pick and choose what this is, it seems, like who they pick on for these issues. It's very apparent. But it's so fucking ridiculous. But I guess now comes the comparison of how that compares to buses, which I also had similar experiences on. Not similar, different experiences years ago. But had their own issues. Buses were very subjective for me. Because you had the same sort of things here. You had luckily I had a bus pass at the time. And, it worked usually. Just scan it or show it and it did its thing. But then you had to find a seat in the bus, and also waiting for the bus as well can be an issue, especially if you have to just wave out your hand. I find that a bit annoying in a way. Makes sense, but I think for some people it might be a bit of an issue. And in buses as well, it can be warm as fuck. I don't really like that, especially at the engine side. If you're at the back, it can be fucking unbearable. But I think when you're sat down and stuff, it can also be an issue because it's just rumbling and making so much fucking noise. And then apparently these days, buses are like so fucking overcrowded that people don't even give up their seats to someone who actually needs it, like an elderly person or even someone vulnerable, like even like mothers, for example. Like, people don't even give up their seats to bumps, and that's absolutely fucking wrong. I think if people can stand up, then you have an obligation to. I've stood up in a bus plenty of times and been safe for it. Just hold on to the handrail. Just make sure you have some handgel handy, because I wouldn't want to touch myself off to touching those. Same in the trains. But yeah, a very interesting experience though, either way. Sort of glad it happened, sort of not. It's just another thing in the book, not books rather, I don't know what to call it. Certainly taught me something too, but also showed me my limits. I think if the trip could have been reduced by at least, 2 hours maybe, I think it might have been decent, but I don't know. It's a bit frustrating. I think that's the main thing though. Because I could have gone later and obviously not risked having my bowels open up. But trains take too long. That's one of the problems, even though there's some nice views for sure. The fact they take so long is an issue. And luckily you do have those trains, I noticed this on the way back, but you have those trains where they just don't actually stop much, or they just don't stop for long. And that's obviously much better. I think a lot of trains would benefit from having that sort of system. But I think if they do stop for too long, people just get impatient and worried as well. Not to mention, there can be disruptions on trains as well. I know that from having live fucking next to them. But yeah, that was something. So, oh yeah, that was an issue I had. I forgot to say that. My left testicle is fucking aching. I don't know what the hell's going on. It started at around. Ooh, what was it? Oh, I can't remember what time it was now. Probably not even afternoon, but I noticed at some point that my left testicle was hurting when I started to move. And I had no idea what it was. I got into, obviously, like, one of our stops, like, a house. And obviously just, I tried to look and there wasn't anything. I tried to check if it was, like, twisted and I couldn't find it. It's still even, hurts a bit now. So I just have no clue what the fuck that was. If I had to guess, it's probably to do, sort of something to do with the way that everything just bounces and stuff. And the bouncing was like causing a sort of impact or something. Also, like, obviously trapping my testicle a bit. So, something related to that, which obviously is a pretty dangerous thing. I don't know how dangerous that is for a guy, and even though I was like spreading as well, like next mansplaining, not really mansplaining, but trying to. That was bad. Also, one of the seats I was in one of the train cars was fucking horrible. My knees just touched the seat back, on the back of the seat, and it was really uncomfortable. Luckily we had to swap after that, but Jesus Christ. It's genuinely unbelievable. One I had to stand for, but it was only for like one short trip, which is good. Yeah, obviously I prefer trains over buses. I think I'll choose that any day. I don't know if they're all electric though. I don't know if trains run on electric. I'm pretty sure they do, given the sort of rails they have. But I can't be 100% sure. It's very interesting either way, but I think it is a viable means of transportation. I just think there needs to be more accessibility. There needs to be like an accessibility class train or something, or at least carriages where it's more accessible. So obviously better access and stuff, but also just better facilities and space and stuff. So definitely someone who's overweight is gonna struggle on that, unless you could somehow magically find the 6-seater. Which again, you'll have a time finding because we only found one in that entire trip of like 5 different trains. But yeah, there's so many problems with it. Honestly, I think there's so much that can be done to improve trains, but it just seems like they don't really care. Again, it's like a government thing. I probably would, if I was government, invest in not just better train carriages and speeds and stuff. Also, fucking lights, I forget to mention, I'll do it after, but also just better locations as well. Faster locations, like why not even have like a speed train specifically from niche places to the other? So maybe like take a train to a speed train or something, or drive there, like, depends. There's no doubt a way to get speed trains to work, like a circular one maybe around the UK, or maybe just going directly into the main places. I don't know. It has to work. But there was the other thing I wanted to mention as well. What was it? I can't remember now. For some reason. Oh yeah, that's the other thing. I forgot to mention about another thing. But on the last train we were on to get back home, for some reason I smelled fucking food, and someone had bought their food on there, like really strong smelling food, and just like opened it and ate it, I think. And it's like sticking out the fucking carriage. Like again, that's the sort of thing, you get different and weirder types of people on there than you might expect, and it just doesn't really work. I think when you force people into these situations, like open public spaces, it's kind of awkward. And I remember from being on the bus as well, sometimes you have to sit next to people you don't even know, or maybe aren't even that friendly. It's just terrible. It makes for a really bad experience. So that's why I think there is probably a reason to even improve trains. It was saying if I was government, something about that, wasn't it? Speed trains, or better carriages. I think I was saying. I don't know 100% what I'd do, but I'd have to like talk with relevant people for it, because obviously I can't just go, oh, we need to have disability trains and we need to have carriages. What I mean for that, we need to have noise friendly and stuff and that too. But, there's different things that need to be done to make it a far better experience. And I think one of the other ways that could probably help it, maybe I'm wrong, maybe to do with like mirrors or up mirrors, like where the baggage is, the baggage area, have like mirrors on these slopes, and then it can show, I don't know, maybe the outside being more angled towards that. Also having trains be electric as well, like fully electric. That'd be great. Better seating, more accessible seating for that matter, so there is like a sort of wider option. It'd be like disabled and I guess overweight people. It's definitely something that can be helpful. Not sure. What else could there even be for that? Well, I guess like a vending machine wouldn't be a bad idea, because I think one of the problems with trains I've noticed here is that there doesn't seem to be any sort of like food or drink sort of related thing. And I know that people maybe don't want it because of like allergies or something, but labels outside of the trains of here, that's the thing as well. I also want to see what is inside the carriages from the outside. So show where there's a toilet on the outside with a very simple label, like a toilet or something, with a very obvious like colour. I don't know. That's to be figured out. Also like seating arrangements too, like 6-seaters and whatever. Yeah, I don't really know what else to do. Voice announcements. I think the terminals can be a bit overwhelming too. I'm really fucking dizzy. I don't know what's going on. Did over 6,500 steps today. It's pretty insane. Yeah, as I said, there's a lot of improvements. I also need to, that's the other thing. Because it's not just about getting what I want, it's about also getting what other people want. So I need to pay attention and ask people what they want to see in trains specifically, to see that they are improved and that they are getting the things that they need. So maybe they do need like proper cleaners, maybe they need seats replacing or covers. There has to be something for a lot of these things here. Because the way it is now, it's just not very optimal. So I don't know. Again, all to be figured out. But it's not my specialty, so yeah, that'll have to be a thing. So yeah, don't know what's on. That's the train experience again. So let's move on. So whilst I struggle to breathe, I'll try to address this thing. I did hear about the 4 arrests that led to the first ever cases where UK citizens who are protesting were sentenced to prison for being quote-unquote terrorists. That's posted from Be Heard Media yesterday. 4 citizens in the UK, the first people to be sentenced as terrorists, for taking part in civil disobedience. In other news, outside court, over 100 people were arrested under terrorist laws for simply holding up placards. I swear there was more to this story. I'll look it up, like Blue Sky, Palestine. It's probably going to be US, isn't it? Oh, here's one. They're all going to be arrested for this, for holding a placard. But I swear it was like 4 people actually did something to save lives. Filter 4, I think. That's what someone's calling it, yeah. Yeah, I'm trying to find it, but basically, the story that I heard, and I don't know if it's correct, so don't obviously take it too seriously, is that 4 people went in to disable some drone technology which was going directly to Israel. Whereas if it was going to, obviously, Ukraine, that'd be a problem. But it was directly towards Israel. And it's obviously very concerning. Like, because Israel are committing a genocide inherently without good reason. And this is the point that they absolutely cannot run, obviously, around, because so many organisations have come together to analyse whether it is really a genocide, and the people have determined that yes, it is. That means they've looked at all the evidence and they've tried to figure it out whether it's actually a genocide, like all the things possible, like including Hamas and the presence, and they still find it that it is actually a genocide. So they've absolutely failed to make the argument here, to debunk the 4, obviously, people here who are trying to save lives by disabling drone technology that serves to harm innocent people, innocent women and children, who have nothing to do with Hamas, who probably don't even have anything to do with Palestine, let's be honest, or Gaza. It's also journalists who get killed by this, including ones in our own soil. And so there is no depravity for them, it seems. There's no low that they won't go to. And this again has been proven. I'm not saying these things because I have my own agenda in this. I'm saying it because this is the facts. This is what organisations are saying, legal teams are saying, and obviously EU has been saying as well. So to convict someone for, or rather 4 people for doing this, well, what I would say are technically justifiable charges, is not on the right terms. So they're being arrested for terrorism rather than actually being a nuisance, which is where I'd agree. Like, admittedly, it's good that they're doing it. I'd have to say that from the evidence we've seen. Again, looking at the Palestinian genocide thing, is ethnic cleansing thing. Objectively, they're doing the right thing, but they have to obviously shoulder, or rather carry the consequences that come with that, which would be property damage of government. And that's something that people are going to start doing more as things get so fucking out of hand. So we'll see that become more commonplace. So we cannot avoid this very real scenario. So, that's another thing. But it is actually property damage rather than terrorism. So this claim that is terrorism is actually not founded, because you have to then prove that what's being done here is causing greater harm to a general population, where in Israel's case, and as the evidence has proved, I don't know what dumbass judge did this, because it is whoever's decided this in the Supreme Court or whatever it was, is just absolutely dumb. There's no question about it. Either dumb or corrupt. One of those two. Or both. Well, to be honest, it is both. The thing is, people don't realise how bad corruption works out for yourself and the general population, but with that sort of thing, it's ridiculous to see. Again, to call it a terrorist charge, it needs to be proven to be terrorism. And based on what I've seen in the real world on what terrorism actually is, it's not actually to do with this. It's not to do with destroying property. Destroying property, wouldn't you know it, is destroying property. So why the fuck isn't the charge just that? So I kind of understand the logic here. I was sort of debating whether to even talk about this before, but because of how stupid this ruling is, I have to. In fact, it wouldn't even surprise me if, in a way, it sort of gets more media attention, and there's even that possibility as well. Much like most critical has responded before, but I have a feeling, even then, like if this gets worse enough, most critical will start paying attention. I remember that sort of thing with the what was it, the far right riots or something? Something with that is like observing the UK with its stupidity. I can't remember what it was, but I was like explaining what the actual UK was, and it was just crazy. He didn't understand it though, that's the thing. But with laws like this and a court ruling, I think there is a thing to be said here, which also will potentially get Charlie's attention too. You never know. So yeah, I don't really have anything else to say about this, to be honest. I really do think that there is a problem here in that ruling, because I'd accept property damage, but it isn't obviously that conviction. So I can't really side with the court on this. There's no justifiable reason. It doesn't mean that if they get arrested for obviously property damage that they're actually wrong. In fact, there are good reasons to do fucking property damage. It just depends on your reasoning, obviously. And, even if I was a judge, I'd still say, like, okay, what you've done is obviously property damage, but your reasons are truthful, they are justifiable. And that's what I'd do in this situation, that's the solution here. But of course, that didn't happen, and so it sucks. I just can't believe that someone actually went that far to do this crap. So yeah. I don't really know where to start. That's about it for this, so let's move on. So I'm interested in this post because it came up on the subreddit. I haven't actually read it yet, so this is a new thing. But the title intrigues me. Rocksmith subreddit. It's about Rocksmith. 1 month guitarist, Rocksmith Plus, low expectations yet still got disappointed. Boy, this is going to be interesting because, I'm a guitarist of about 12 years now, I think. About that amount. I can't remember now how long it's actually been. Maybe it started in 2015. I've been playing a while, and I learnt through Rocksmith 2014. But a little backstory, I tried the Rocksmith Plus beta, reported on the issues of it and suggestions to make it better, and it was all ignored. Every single bit of it ignored. I don't think there was even like a developer response because they knew that I was right, and they didn't even bother addressing it, which is just fucking insane. But yeah, I just hated it, and even to this day, where the price has now also increased because it's this bad subscription model, it's even worse. And I'm curious to see what people say about it, especially being a new guitarist. So let's see. I decided to subscribe to Rocksmith Plus as a new guitarist for 1 month. I tried out both Rocksmith 2014 and Rocksmith Plus before committing around 1 to 2 hours each, and I thought Rocksmith Plus would be a better choice due to the node-by-node practice mode. What I thought: larger library and less problems with my cheap aux to USB cable. I knew about the overwhelmingly negative sentiment and thought it was somewhat of an overreaction because of the price, plus bugs and mistakes for older versions. Decided to try 1 month to see if I like it. After going through my liked songs on Spotify for 100 plus, I found one single song, and not even one that I was super into. The garbage costs 4 times more as much as Spotify, and I can't play a single song I like. On top of this, when trying to refund legal right in the EU within 14 days, the Ubisoft website didn't even have the option for that. Option that was written in the FAQ. I chose to ignore the missing gamers, mediocre node section, always online feature and terrible pricing, and felt like I was scammed. Thankfully, after contacting support, my refund got approved, but I think it's scummy that if I were outside of the EU, I would have just been scammed down for $20. This is genuinely scummy, and Ubisoft deserves all I hate, if not more. if there is a mod for no by no practice for Rocksmith 2014, I really need that, but did not find anything online. I think I might just stick to tabs. Yeah, that's the end of the post. It's very interesting to hear that though, and that was sort of my thought with this as well. Because as much as I can admire that they use tracks, and I actually defend them on this too, that they use tracks from bands that are not as popular or unpopular songs by popular bands, it still doesn't make sense to not balance it out. So you could do half and half. Say you do like Metallica for one of it and you do the unpopular songs, but you can also do popular songs by kind of unpopular bands. So maybe you do Sylosis or something, which isn't at the moment, as far as I'm aware, too popular. It's just that the band has never really took off in terms of an audience. But yeah, I could see how the 500 plus songs were bad enough here, because the fact there's only one is insane. And then on top of that, Ubisoft has to license them somehow to get them on the library, which again is difficult to do, and it's likely to disappear after a certain while. So again, this is just one of those things. It's like, holy shit, dude. Yeah, we all knew Rocksmith Plus was bad, but it was this bad, it seems. And I was enjoying going through the library of Rocksmith Plus. That's the one thing I admit I enjoyed, because I found new songs. I'd pretty much heard a lot of things before. A lot of the songs are on there, like Metallica and Megadeth, and there's probably others on there. Also, America Holds With No Name, but I wish that was on Rocksmith 2014 now, which is fucking dumb. But that's one of the things I hate about Customs Forge. They, for some reason, don't allow the official arrangements to be like custom made, so I just find it very confusing. I wish there was an alternative for that, or maybe anti-Rocksmith or something, like call it that, and it's just all the DLC they've removed, all the songs they've removed, and also the official stuff. But that'd be great actually. Yeah, it'd be great to have that, because they remove DLC for 2014 now for whatever reason, and it's just so fucking disappointing, because you want to play some of these tracks and they're gone. Even then, Rocksmith 2011 or 2012, I can't remember what year it was now, that had some songs in it which you can no longer get in 2014 with the transfer thing even. So there's even that issue. So yeah, but also I made this comment as well, and I think it's really important to share this. I'm really impressed with the comment as well, because it seems to have taken off a bit. But it's like asking what major improvements would make Rocksmith 2014 better, or Rocksmith Plus. And I suggested two things. The first thing was more string support. So obviously, as I play a 7-string, I'd want to have the 7th string. But if there were an 8-string option, even a way to convert 8-string to 6-string, I'd want that. And it doesn't seem that hard to do as far as I'm aware. In fact, Rocksmith, and apparently it's been renamed to, what was it? Oh, it had a really good name. It had a really good audio name. I can't remember what it's called now, but they're updating it. But I imagine it could be added to that eventually. We already have extra string support on there. But the fact they never added it, even though it's a learning game, is just frankly ridiculous. Like, some people literally just pick up an 8-string as a guitar to learn, because it is actually surprisingly simple to learn. Just because it has extra strings, it doesn't mean it's difficult. In fact, piano, which is on the library, is probably harder to learn, because you have to memorize not only just like 12 notes, but the octaves up and where they are on your hands. So you have to get into like the rhythm, also the sharp notes as well. So they're making the argument, the developers making the argument that it's too complicated to have an extra string, or 5, however many it is, it's just ridiculous. Like, seriously, you are actually stupid. It's just ridiculous how they won't even admit that they're wrong here. But yeah, the string support thing is definitely a thing. And if I had to guess, this 1 month Guitarist probably is probably not. I'll have to assume, unfortunately, but probably a metalhead with only an interest in 8-string tracks. So if we're talking like Meshuggah, who else? Like, I can't think of who else now for some reason. It's blanking. But just whoever's on Spotify and who plays an 8-string. But that's the crazy thing with this. Again, not enough songs for the average audience, especially the modern audience. And this is also kind of the issue when a game becomes its director's wet dream. I've unfortunately seen this trend too many times. I've seen it destroy games. World of Warcraft was one of the biggest examples I've known. Even then, like the direction that Valve games have taken, where developers only work on what they want to work on, immediately is fine. But when a game is absolutely neglected, they don't even try to remedy it. And TF2, as a result, was one of the most controversial games for a while because it's full of fucking bots that just disrupted any server. And it could be so bad that you join a server with just the bots and they kick you out. That's how bad it was, and they didn't do anything for months. But this is what happens when other developers don't care or they just don't appeal to their audience. So it's really important to have that, to have the feedback and pay attention to it and apply it. Applying it is important, and World of Warcraft, I remember Ian Hazakostas back in Shadowlands and the BFA wanted to take it in the direction of Path of Exile. And if anyone knows that game, it's got a stupidly big skill tree system and it's really unfair. And it might be one of the worst games I've ever seen, I'm not gonna lie. But also it's just, it looks like a crap game, it's toxic as hell. So it really took a bad direction from that. And that's where I figured Ian probably got most of the inspiration from for those WoW expansions. And then obviously like moving on to the later thing, in Final Fantasy XIV we saw player numbers fall off in Launchrail. And that's partially because the story isn't as interesting, but I also think it's because the game has a very outdated system when it comes to addressing the needs of the current climate, the current economic climate. And it's weird when the subreddit shit talks to me about it, and I still think about this every now and then. People saying that everything is too grindy. There's too many things to do, and I'm still finding things to do. In fact, I've limited my list because of the things that there are to do. And I get flamed for it because, for some reason, people who spend 16 hours a day on it don't like the fact that their favourite game is being criticised. But I'm someone with less than 2 hours, or even 3 if I'm lucky, to even play the game now. And yet, it's become a cesspit of grindiness. And then on top of that, to add to this as well, the developers, mainly Yoshi P, I think, has admitted that it needs to be more accommodating to the current time, such as being a bit shorter, I think he said, and also just being a bit fairer. So that also included caring about people who obviously work more and have a family. I'm pretty sure he mentioned it anyway. I could be wrong. He mentioned it during the Evercold live stream. What was that place? I can't remember. It was like the first Final Fantasy Fan Fest, I think. The first event, of 2026. I don't know where I was. Anyway, I'm going off topic here, but it's important either way. Pay attention or lose. That's the lesson here. But also, there's a bunch of things here, like again the missing game modes and Rocksmith Plus, mediocre note detection. Yep, that was a big problem for me personally. Always online feature. Yep, that was awful because if it happens during a doxing or server issues, you're fucked. And it still felt like a scam. Yep. And I'm not sure about the note-by-note practice mode. I think that is actually, yeah, I know what that is actually. I just remembered it because I was thinking like, you have riff repeater, don't you? No, it's actually a better way. It's like hitting the note. So say you're playing a one-note version of A Horse with No Name, and you do like a, I don't know, grab my guitar. I can actually sort of play that thing. Yeah, so it starts with the open E. So okay, you need to play that. Okay, it moves on and then it pauses right before the next note. So the timing isn't even the priority here. It's an easier way to learn. But the next note is the second fret of the E string, the low E, and you play that, and you get that. So it goes on, and that's the way to learn. I wish I had that in Rocksmith 2014. We had it, because it such goes out like addition. I didn't realise how effective it was until I saw it. Even though I never really used it, I literally saw its application immediately. And I've been through the Rocksmith on a game with no modes. I don't know. Yeah, it's just literal cringe though. The other thing I suggested, I've got down that, is I want to see a multi-scale support for it. So on top of the additional strings, I think there is a place for inputting a scale mode where you can see the visual display of it. So you can sort of position your fingers to match it. And in combination with another impressive post I saw in the Reddit subreddit, is someone is making a meta version of Rocksmith where you can actually see it in alternative reality. Here it is, by Montanum, and it's got the note by note too. But developing a guitar app basically, and this is really impressive. It also shows the fucking notes. Well, that is impressive because it doesn't do that on any other fucking game. Yeah, it's like crazy impressive, but you can actually see where you're supposed to hit things. So your like finger, you could see that right before the note highway. So you can sort of move your hand to prepare for things a bit easier. It's like even more improved learning. It's genuinely impressive. Yeah. But yeah, Rocksmith still a controversial game it seems, and not really improving. We've seen some interesting things in the community too. Also people like asking what each thing is, like someone learning hybrid techniques. Someone asking about making their own real-time cable or something, which is very interesting, so they can make it for cheaper. I don't know, but it's very interesting. I just find this fascinating to hear that someone who's new to guitar even found Rocksmith Plus very bad and compared it to 2014. Yeah, so I don't really know what else to add. That's about it for this. So let's move on. Does anyone else wonder what would happen if Donald Trump wasn't president anymore? And also, like, what if other political leaders were just removed, like Netanyahu, Nigel Farage, Rupert Lowe, Keir Starmer, and like, just imagine the world in that state. Because every day it feels like my newsfeed is just filled with constant bigotry and nonsense like that, including cartoons and memes. And it makes me wonder what would happen if suddenly all this was to just disappear tomorrow. Would there, other than obviously the big announcement that they're gone, would there still be memes or not? I'm genuinely curious. Because like, what would actually happen? It's fucking crazy, but something would change, I think. Obviously, we'd still get bad people in charge, but literally all the memes would fucking change, wouldn't they? I know that you'd see something still about some of them anyway. Just going off a guess here or whim, whatever you call that. But you'd still see memes from that place and that state, and how out of hand that would get. It's kind of crazy. I don't really know what to talk about here, because again, it's like a speculation sort of thing. But I think there is literally a case to be made where, in this current state, if things were to change tomorrow, there would be objectively good things. And I think that would be overall beneficial. Like, I could be missing something, I could be wrong here. But to me, that seems like a no-brainer. I think people would also stop talking about it, but they would also try to make sure that the world is on the right path as well, as much as they can, probably. So yeah, I don't really know what to add here. No, it's just fucking crazy. So that leads into another thing. I just got reminded of this fucking. Apparently, Elon Musk is like the first ever trillionaire, which is ridiculous, by the way. And I think obviously something needs to be done about that again. Countries need to put a restaurants out there, not a West, what the hell? Because they have the money to do that. Like, governments are literally trillionaires anyway. So, I don't know why they're not already like putting bounties up there, putting bounties together for an arrest and seizing of assets from Elon Musk, because literally this is like the best thing you can fucking do. And they actually can't win as well. That's the thing. Like, Elon Musk can't win. But if you were to remove Elon Musk as well, you would probably see that the world would also change again. Same with any other billionaire, CEO, or just ultra wealthy person is just removed. It's a crazy amount of the world that revolves around the hatred of these people. And again, if that source of hatred is removed, then I think we would see a more positive world and a more likely scenario where things will get better. So yeah, I just find it very strange. I just felt like mentioning it. Hopefully there will be a world where none of these dickheads exist, but yeah, I could only dream. So yeah, let's move on. I forgot to share this, but it's a funny story from my trip yesterday. Yeah, somehow I forgot about it, but it's too funny. So, I have to say thank you to the birds in the UK, because, like, the bird wildlife, I mean, they just did something amazing, and it's so funny to look at. But as I was walking down the road from the train station, that's with the people I was with, I noticed, because I always look at the cars on the side for some reason, it's just something to look at, and I noticed that there was a Tesla, and on that Tesla there was just a ton of bird shit. It's fucking brilliant. And no other car had that, which was also really funny. So it's just a Tesla. Like, what? Oh, it's so funny though. It's just absolutely unbelievable. Yeah, I just thought that was a really funny thing to share. Not really much else to say on it. So, let's move on. So I've forgot to address this point again somehow. There's a point? What? Well, bugs. But, given that the anti-migrant crowd isn't actually always anti-migrant, it's just Islamophobic. And I've wondered as well what the validity is of that, like whether they're actually right, whether there's like a invasion of Islamists, basically. I'm not sure if that is the actual term. But when it comes to that, like, do they actually know how much that is, and like how bad the quote-unquote invasion is? Because the thing that I see, and I've looked this up, is that we've actually always had Islam in the UK. In fact, the first mosque was built, and affiliation as Sunni Islam, built in the UK in 1889. So the problem with Islam being a quote-unquote invasion doesn't exist. And seemingly on this wiki page of this specific mosque, there hasn't really been any issues with it. And it was built in Surrey, apparently. So, you know, it's just extremely bizarre that people take issue with mosques in the UK. And I'm wondering what the trend data is of like Islam in the UK. Trend data of Islam in the UK. Because this will obviously show the correct amount. So Muslim Council of Britain, okay. Admittedly it's a bit biased then. May 13th, 2026. So British Muslims in numbers, 6% of the UK population. 50% growth since 2001. No, 151%. So, no. There is not an invasion. People might see the 151% and think, that's a lot. But from 2001, going by the numbers here, it probably was... Hang on, let me do the math. So, I got math like 6. Is it 6% divided by 1.5? I have a feeling it is. I can't math today for some reason. I had a good sleep, but I can't math. So divided by, you know, that's 1.6 divided by 1.5, and that is 0.6, apparently. Wait, what? No, that's not right. I put 6 and then it changed it to 1. Divided by 1.5 equals 4. So yeah, it's like 4% back in 2001. So there is no invasion. And apparently the population growth and Muslim growth, according to again this site, is 1.6 million. When it doesn't say when for some reason. But I'm guessing it's like 2001 and it's 4 million now. Where British Muslims live: London, West Midlands, North West, Yorkshire, South East, East of England, East Midlands, South West. So, again, even by their numbers, it's quite a low fucking rate. So let's try to balance it out with something else. Let's see, Islam in the United Kingdom, Wikipedia. Let's see. Again, they're reporting from 2021 that it's still 6%, and that means 3.9 million people in the UK. Or actually 4 million, because rounding it up, it's extremely close. And in other countries, like, well, England is 6.7% actually, it's just the UK as a whole. Scotland 2.2, Wales 2.2, Northern Ireland 0.6. You know what's crazy is fucking riots about this in Ireland. And yet, there is like such a small percentage. Like, it's fucking insane. Like, people really are fucking crybabies when it comes to this, and actual snowflakes. It's just absolute insanity. And then the world map of this, which is also equally as interesting. Like, very dark green is like 95 to 100%, and obviously the lighter it is, the less of the population there is. Some are unaccounted for, which is interesting, like Mexico and Brazil and South America. Wait, Brazil? Yeah, Brazil. Yeah, Amazon rainforest, of course. You know, really enough, in the warmest areas of the world, spanning from, I think that's below Kazakhstan, or right next to India, or it's a better way to measure it, to the west of India. There's tons of Muslim countries. And even then, a more Muslim-dominated place, by the looks of it, seems to be France, and that's like 15%, I believe. Even Russia somehow has around 7 to 15%. So, to say that there's a fucking invasion is just completely fucking misleading. If anything, you should be focusing on these other countries. It is absolutely fucking ridiculous. I genuinely cannot understand the logic here. So all this research, them thinking there's a fucking invasion, is just complete misinformation. And this took me under 5 minutes of research. All of it did. So, what's the excuse here? Obviously, social media is absolutely creating a divide. And it's also forging what I'd call, like, I don't know what to call it, like Islamophobia, probably. It's just getting fucking ridiculous. You can't find evidence for this. Because it just simply, well, you can find evidence, it's there. But you can't find evidence for the points they're making. That is an invasion. And as I said, 151% growth is quite big. Actually, there's 2%. I just realised the calculation I did was wrong. So they started at like 2% and it's gone up to 6%. But also, if you look at human population trends, it's also gone up. And also the internet usage, once again, gone up. There are many different factors, so you can't just discount this as, oh, it's an invasion, when there are so many factors to take into account. In 2001, the internet still wasn't common usage. In 2009, it was starting to become common usage. I was using it. And then 2013 was, weirdly enough, the era where everyone started using it a bit more. A lot more, rather. And then growing from that, 2016, it's probably where it almost peaked as well. And then 2020, with COVID, it peaked at its highest. And ironically, it's where you start to see the division and hatred. And that's where it comes from. So, again, absolute fucking absurdity. There is no reason for Islamophobia. And again, in just 5 minutes of research, I've already debunked every single fucking claim. And also just 5 minutes of thinking too. And you can also probably do this on like a work commute, listening to sources like who report on it. So again, it's just fucking ridiculous. I don't know what else to add here. I've pretty much said everything I can about this and defended Islam as best as I can without really a bias towards it. Like, to be clear, I'm an atheist, and I think some of the teachers of Islam are fucking disgusting. But to say there's an invasion, again, is just stupidly misleading. Ironically, there's probably a bigger portion of Christianity in the UK than there is anywhere else, and it's bigger than Islam, so why people feel threatened is just bizarre to me. I don't understand this. There is no logic here. And not to mention, I'd say a lot of these Christians are even fake. Because Christianity doesn't really teach about condemning people you disagree with. That's from what I'm aware of anyway. Also, there's stuff about slavery and war, but it's just because it's based on text that came out, which dropped in like Zoomer term, but it dropped over 2,000 years ago. And as a result, because society hadn't developed back then, let alone had the scientific advancement we had, we weren't aware of what a lot of these things were. They didn't know that there were trans people, they didn't know there'd be industrial farming or climate change. they didn't know a lot of these things, and yet some of the teachings in that were brilliant. Again, from what I've heard, the one that sticks with me is probably Love Thy Neighbour. And Zero, I think. There's probably a thing after that, I can't remember what it was though. But I think that's a really important lesson. I think you do have to be respectful and accept these realities for what they are. Even myself, as an agnostic atheist, I have to accept it. I have to accept the fact that there are people who are just going to be different to me, and I may not even agree with or get on board with. In fact, only a few months ago, I think, we had a fucking... had a preacher or something from a church saying that the only law we should follow is God's law, and you know, it sparked a debate between a fucking housemate and these guys, and you know, just go into more like, oh well, you're just like telemarketers. But there's so many stupid claims in that. But this is sort of what it does to you. It's like religion itself, whilst I can't agree with it, it has positives and negatives, and I think the most negative side is when it replaces your perception of reality with something else. Much like how Americans have hijacked it to basically be something hateful, so too are the UK. It's starting to do that. So it's absolutely insane to me. Yeah, I don't really know what to add here. I've pretty much talked about everything, so let's bloody move on. Oh, that was another thing I forgot to add, but also when they say it's like targeting the migrants, again, most of them mean Islam, but for some reason they're not focusing on Islam, because that is the issue that most people have, but they're targeting migrants with it as like collateral. And that just makes me wonder what the divide is going to cause here, because you have two sides of this where both can be good and bad. Also, deporting migrants, it lowers the Muslim population by a bit, but not a ton, which is a mistake that people make here, because they think that the Muslim population is migrants, but that's not the case. I guarantee you there's numbers out there. I haven't done the research, obviously, but there are probably numbers out there on that. And judging by, again, that earlier example, Islam has always existed in the UK, since the industrial eras at least. So it just makes no sense that people believe this shit. And what's the other thing? As for like who to vote for to get rid of or lower, reduce the Islam population or Muslim population, whatever you call it, I think that you need to look into how to create better rights for people with and without belief, and I think that's really important. So what you should be looking into, rather than rules that say you can't do this, you can't do that, is better education, which is important because I think that debunks a lot of things around or surrounding religions, not just Islam but others, including Jehovah's Witnesses, including some denominations of Christianity. Hell, even including things like Hinduism, which itself is probably really rare in the UK, but it just applies to all religions, and I think a good education will stop that. I remember my religious education, like, what was it, RE? I think it's just called RE, yeah. But we had teachings of that. We had like, oh, well, we learn about this, there's like different religions, there's different things, and Christianity is the most common one, and we just learn random bits and bobs from it, although there aren't really many lessons because we only had like think 30 or something, because they stopped doing it after a while. Even then, we were just taught that there were just lots of different religions out there, and it's up to you if you believe in it. You know, the teacher wasn't trying to say, you need to believe in that or this. It was just educating us the same way that geography lessons, I remember this as well, were teaching us about greenhouse gases and, like, what did Al Gore call it? Global warming, that's it. It's teaching us about all this sort of stuff, and it's kind of on a neutral perspective rather than you need to go do this now sort of thing. So that's important. But the other way is to, rather than create divide, because divide creates chaos, and obviously chaos just leads to destruction. But that also means it backfires, so destruction backfires on you. So you need to create equal rights here instead. And the equal rights in this case means stronger protection for religions, except for obviously niche cases where there's actually harm. So obviously I'm talking about the knife incident, yes, that one. So we need like stronger rules to say that people like that should be arrested for it, regardless of religious belief. But the other thing is making sure people have the community, because I think that's one of the bigger problems. Because as I said, as technology has grown, people have got onto the internet more, people who shouldn't be on there in my opinion, and that's led to this discourse. That's why you see so much bigotry and so many reform followers. It's because they follow the internet now rather than actual reasoning, and again creating a more accessible world where you can also share stories and let people know that you mean no harm as well. I think that's equally as important. I think a lot of exposure can go a long way. But it's even the same for like disability rights. This is the thing, it goes hand in hand. Because even though religion and disability are not inherently correlated, they do have similarities. A lot of people view disability as disgusting, as people who are inferior. And I've heard a horrible story about that from some celebrity, I think. A celebrity was like a cunt, but I'm not going to talk about that, it's a bit private. But it happens, and I think the only way we can stop that is, again, stronger rights and a better economy, better education as well. So I think that's really important. So yeah, I don't really know what else to add, to be honest. I think that's important. I think it matters for just so many different things. And yeah, like, I don't know what else to add here again. So yeah, just stronger rights, just more community and equality, and that's it. That's how you actually deal with the Islamic population. Education, equality, exposure, like the 3 E's, I guess. So yeah, let's actually move on now. I forgot to report on this somehow, but my bowels have sort of become pretty normalised, like not in the way that my habits changed, it's still the same, but the fucking crazy thing about it is a simple diet change has actually sort of transformed it. Although it's still got bad aspects and still has some of the things that remain from it from before, it's a lot better than it was, I have to say. So obviously this goes into detail about stool quality, so you've been warned. So basically what's happened is I've increased the amount of fibre I get into my diet by a significant amount. So I was already getting a lot anyway, but I did more. So I followed that spiderweb looks concerning. I followed the Daily Dozen from, obviously, Dr. Gregor, and I've adapted it to my own standards where I can eat healthy and still eat the things I like and can tolerate, rather. Although it's a bit hard to eat cruciferous vegetables at the moment. I have to go on to cauliflower. But I'm still having a hard time with veg. I don't think that's going away anytime soon. But what I've done is I've improved my breakfast, first of all, to make it bigger and better. So in that I've increased the amount of fruit I have, measured it, and I have a quarter cup measurement for my berries, and I have that in the bag as it is. And for raisins I have the same thing. I have, I think it's like a quarter cup still for that, and I measure out my things as usual, and also peanut butter I have as like the nut thing, and same with flaxseed and a banana, so it's another fruit, so I have bananas with it. And oats, obviously, but at the moment I'm going through a Asda rip-off of Shreddies, which is fine. It's okay, but I'll go back to oats eventually. And that seems to have improved it. Immediately it improved my store quality. So it went from a mushy mess, like almost like a sort of, I hate to describe it as this, but cookie dough, or even cake batter, rather. Cake batter's probably a better example. It went from that to now what feels just like a normal store quality, which is almost like sausage-like stuff, like they used to be. And that seems to have changed it, which is great. And I see the positives of it. It has actually changed things. But on top of that, I also try to get what I call the other two solution. So I'm already getting like a 5 a day, which is good, but obviously it's not optimal. Which is almost like a 7 a day for me, because I'm also eating plant-based anyway. But I've added beans and cruciferous veg to my diet. So the beans can also include like tofu or what's the other one? Hummus, that's it, because apparently chickpeas are beans. Even though they're peas. You're a bean, you're a pea. That would be a great song for the what's that game? Splatoon, that's it. Maybe if they have, or maybe if that weird game that I forgot the name of it, that bean game. Maybe that could be a song. You're a bean, you're a pea. Oh, that's stupid. But anyway, I have that as a bean, and I try to measure it out with the cruciferous veg. It's not always easy to do, and because the broccoli that's frozen is so fucking big, it gets a bit too much to eat. I will admit that, and that's why I'm probably going to move towards cauliflower instead. But I don't know, I want to try something like kale, which is a cruciferous veg apparently. But I can't find kale anymore. It doesn't seem to exist. So I don't know what the fuck happened there. It used to. Like when I was trying the vegan lifestyle again about 5 years ago, I think I tried it. That was weird. What else? I'm trying to think. But yeah, again, I'm trying these things. I have to look up cruciferous veg to find alternatives. Cruciferous veg. I don't know, do I do daily? I don't know. I'll just do a normal search, or not. Image. Yeah, but basically, that's the thing. But all this, on top of weighing out my portions a bit better, so if I have like those two veg with something, also I can treat lunch as normal, just noodles and grits or whatever. But I'd have the veg with like half my meal and then a portion of something else with it and another portion of something else. So it'd be like chips, like a handful of chips, and then a burger, and then the veg, although that can be a bit overwhelming, as I said, because of just my ARFID, and it turns out I'm actually really ARFID towards certain veg rather than others, and I used to like broccoli, but now I just cannot like it. It tastes a bit weird, and it feels a bit weird too. I think the feel is worse than the taste. Because I can sort of tolerate the taste, but also I'm just freaky about it because of OCD as well. Because I have seen I think like snails and slugs on broccoli before, and it's kind of gross. I'm not even sure how that's even possible, to be honest, given that they wash it. Yeah, it's always a bit off-putting that. Which is why I tend to go to beans, because beans are actually like protected before they get opened from their stem. I did look up how they grow them, and it was fascinating, really. The beans are probably like the safest for like OCD and ARFID, in my opinion. Although you do probably need to cook them a bit before, eating them. That's a mistake I keep making, and they turn out like hard sometimes. But yeah, basically all this leads to is that my stool is just a lot better. It's surprising how much increasing your fibre can really change things. And the strange thing is that you get idiots saying that the carnivore diet is the way forward with, well, health and with peak masculinity, but when your masculinity is like, I need to go to the toilet and have diarrhea, yeah, that's not going to work out for you. It's going to make you fucking weak. It's just so dumb. And every time I've looked at the carnivore subreddit, it's literally full of health problems. And on the vegan Reddit, for comparison, it's only ever like 1 in every 50 posts you see a health problem. Or even like mental health, which is more common because it's harder to be mentally sane whilst a very large population of people just don't agree with you, let alone believe you. So that's obviously its own entire thing. But I don't know. That's about it though for really enough shit talk. So I better move on from this. Yeah. Admits. That's probably the word you're supposed to say. When you say admits. Yeah. But anyway, admits the recent, it's also ongoing. It's not just recent, it's an ongoing anti-migrant protest. There is also something that I have to reveal personally that I find really stupid, because last year I believe I went into, maybe even a few months ago, I went into the problems I've had with migrant people specifically. And it's mainly just to do with language they use, obviously. Well, not language they use, I mean their accent, that's what I meant. Not the language. Their English is fine, sometimes better than most British people. But oftentimes the accents are hard to understand. However, I forgot to go into the ones that actually were good, and they actually exist all over the place, in fact. I've met Indian migrants through Indian restaurants, obviously, who not only just speak really good English and have a clean accent, but also they are incredibly talented, obviously, hence the amazing food. But outside of like restaurants, there was also taxi drivers. I've had good experiences with them as well. I'm assuming they're migrant anyway, because the accent is different. But there's so many interesting things that you can take away from this. But then there's the biggest thing for me, in my opinion, which I almost forgot about. But my Crohn's disease was not identified by the first doctor I had, where obviously I had a bad experience. Sadly, this doctor was a migrant, but I'm not sure if he was all too serious about his job. But I won't really hold it against him in a way, because I don't know if it is actually to do with that. I think people go there, especially with the town he's in, like fucking hell. I can imagine that town being racist, so it kind of doesn't surprise me if he's a bit pissed off with everyone. Because they'd probably say like, I don't know, go back to your own home. You shouldn't be a doctor or something. So he probably gets verbally abused on a daily basis, but yeah. And he also just didn't seem to understand a lot of things and was persistent as well. So, yeah, there are problems, but in a stark contrast, the moment I moved and got a new doctor, obviously I had to change doctors because I had to move, obviously. I got another migrant doctor. And this doctor, an actual doctor by the way, not just a GP, helped diagnose my fucking issue. Or at least signpost what it was. I'm not sure if signpost is actually the term, whatever it is, like, indicate. Because up until this point, nobody had bothered to find out what it could be. And they never really looked at the issue here. They never fucking bothered. And this new doctor actually bothered to look. They bothered to look through the entire, like, what do you call it, repertoire? I don't know, like everything digestion related, and you know, obviously with like the usual stuff I got, like I had an anal fissure as well, plus what was it, skin tag or something? I can't remember what it's called now. But also had that. But on top of that, even though she didn't technically help me in understanding how to apply it, because that was what I was doing wrong, she did, however, figure out that there was something wrong with my bowels. And this is after a conversation with another GP, seemingly, so because they had to fucking diagnose this, so I was desperately needing help. And eventually they put me on antibiotics. And wait a minute, I haven't taken my antibiotics. Hello? Wait, I don't. Hang on. This was the day now I haven't. Fuck. I'm just gonna have to take them all now. But yeah. Right, so I have, but to be clear, these antibiotics are for my cellulitis, it's not for the issue that I was actually diagnosed with a year ago, actually 3 years ago. Because they're trying to figure out what it could be, and to narrow the actual possible causes, they decided to put me on antibiotics, and what came of that was it turns out I have something wrong with my bowels, and that was obvious, and then they used that info to basically keep me referred to a I don't know what to call it, a colonoscopy, that's it. Because I think of doing something like an endoscopy or something, which is like a shorter version, but a colonoscopy would have been far more useful, and it turns out it is. So, basically, I got the colonoscopy, and then it turns out that I've actually got Crohn's disease. Although they confused me because they said that initially it was probably what was it, ulcerative colitis, I think they said, and then eventually I think it got narrowed down to Crohn's disease from the sample they took. And that essentially meant that I was officially diagnosed, and the antibiotics actually really reported on them that I was seriously having trouble in my bowels somewhere. So that did confirm something and helped me. So, again, as I have to say it time and time again, the migrants are the ones who are working these jobs which save lives, and mine was very well saved, or at least is as saved as it can be with what I got, really, because it is hard to prevent, but you know, it's just one of those things. Like, you really cannot ignore the fact that this actually did save my life. So, I think people really need to look inward and reflect on this, because this is fucking insane. Think about every diagnosis you've ever had, and you'll probably start to see, from the doctors you remember in those times, and even nurses and actual people who do the stuff like surgery, that is more likely that migrants did it. They actively served you and saved your life. And then look at the protests and riots happening today. How the fuck can you spit in their faces? Genuinely, how can you march the streets in anger and social media, knowing that migrant doctors save your life, and possibly save your life as well? Let's not forget, there's also that possibly. It's not always guaranteed. But the point is, the ones who are helping you are the migrants. So again, why are you putting all their lives at risk for the sake of a fucking minority in another minority? Doesn't make sense. And I just think it's gross behaviour, because if this is how you treat people, don't expect the left to be kind towards you. Because this is just fucking disgusting. It's the same thing that billionaires do and already are doing. And they're ultra wealthy in general for that. They spread gross misinformation and whatever you call it, like rhetoric. And they expect applauses in return. Or pats on the back, or whatever you call it. But in reality, there are severe consequences to doing something like that. And again, that's like the image you create. You make people dislike you, and you start to dehumanize yourself. You start to look back in anger, see people as less than human, or not human at all. And then people start to realize you're a fucking psycho. Because that's what you are. You're either a psycho, or you're antisocial, or again, just too stupid to realize it. You could be bigoted. And that leads to a lot of the problems we're seeing now. So when I think about the flag shuggers that were in their 20s that I saw yesterday, I also think there is a reason to believe that in that same vein, there is actually like truth to that statement, that they think lefties will have their heads. Because history is going to repeat itself. And from history we know that the rise of fascism leads to revolution, rebellion. It leads to so much discourse that backfires in the face of a fascist every single fucking time. It's not even the only account in history as far as I'm aware. It's not just World War II. It's everything else. It's World War One, I reckon, if that was actually fascism. I can't remember. It's so long since I actually learned about that, and it's so forgotten too. But there have been other wars throughout history which prove the same thing. And fascism really does not stand up to the task. It doesn't control what you think it does. It doesn't solve what you think it does. And that's why there is a big target on fascist heads at the moment. And why there is a risk to actually spitting in the faces of migrants, regardless of what they've done or what they haven't done. It's just ridiculous. And if we go with the guilty until proven innocent mindset, which is what is being said here, and I'm surprised not many people mention this, we're heading towards an even bigger disaster than you might think. The world is already in so much shit, and you're just going to make it worse, because now we can assume that everyone who roams the streets is of a guilty party, regardless of whether they're migrants or not, regardless of their skin colour, disability, or even just openly like about their sexuality. I don't know how to describe that. But even with how people dress as well, because let's not mention the people who vote and rally behind far right and fascist movements and politicians likely want control over everything. It's where domestic abusers are born. It's where so many things that go wrong, do go wrong. It's where paedophiles are born. It's where child abusers are born. It's where crime is rampant. And we can see this. It's out there in the open. There's sources, there's studies. And that's why I just feel so sickening. But honestly, I think one of the things they need to do is obviously go to these migrant doctors and say, I don't believe in your rights. I don't believe you should be a doctor. I don't believe you should be in this country. And they are the ones saving lives. It just doesn't make any sense to me. They're so cowardly, they'd rather go to the streets and burn someone's home with a crowd of people than actually say it to their faces. Rather than say that they're not welcome. And even then, those that do, they don't have any point. They haven't actually proven the point. So a migrant who hears that is not going to be convinced. And yes, they might be scared. They might actually want to leave that place. But you're not doing any favours for yourself, because if you're like that much of an arsehole to them, they don't have to treat you in kind. So you justify it. You justify their hatred and violence towards you. And that obviously creates a worse world for everyone, including people on the left. So it's not just self-sabotage, it's also sabotage of the opposition. That's just fucking nuts. I don't know what else to say here. Again, it's just extremely disgusting. So if we just learnt to live alongside each other, that would have been far better, but no. Some people take it too far, it seems, and don't even really care. I don't know. Don't really have anything else to add here, so I think I shall move on. You want to know something shocking that I only realised recently upon seeing a few reactions to, well, migrant things in the UK. I suppose I should make a series called just anti-immigrant things or something, I don't know. But it reminds me of who I used to be, and I think there's an important thing here that can be taken away from me, obviously. But I just remember a time in which I used to be very hateful and sort of destructive in a way. Not really too destructive, obviously. It was more like self-destructive, more than anything else, and even then the online interactions were just like, oh, fuck you. Maybe the old death threat, but obviously it's so long ago. There's no point in fucking talking about that. But it reminds me of that hateful phase I had. And it's a very toxic thing. It's like extremely fucking toxic. And they need to make changes, or go into after. But there are quite a few things that cause that to happen. But as someone who came out that rot, where it was just pure hatred for humanity and everything around it, it was a big wake-up call. Anyway, to see that there was so much rage around and so many problems as a result of it. I'm not even really sure how to explain it. I think around the time that I was going to college, I was sort of struggling to make friends, although I made some. And I ended up just getting into the wrong groups of people, and I still had some very dodgy Steam friends here and there, which is where I ended up with those dodgy people to begin with. And eventually I got into the wrong group again, and also my hatred sort of peaked at the time, because I was starting to realise so many things in the world were just shit. The way that things happened just didn't seem fair. I was reading like the Facebook trends back in 2013 up till 2018, I believe. And I finally turned it off, and it was often toxic. The same way that Blue Skies is now, to be honest, and I turned that off as well. And that's also one of the best things you can do, but it was very concerning to see just how much hatred you can actually farm off of just a trending topic. And this came in the form of, like, apparently, just weirdly enough, it for some reason knew something. There's like a big story in the UK of, I think, a college teacher who had sex with an underage student or something. Like, it's fucking crazy. Like, literally unbelievable. And that actually happened. But it's a reminder that a lot of these things, whilst they are sickening, they sometimes only exist to cause controversy and create more problems. So it's often worth knowing that, because you simply cannot take things at face value anymore. It's kind of a slippery slope to do that, and you realise it's like a big issue. I don't know how to describe it exactly. But the hatred ends up swelling up inside you, and you start to realise very quickly that you have this trend where you like to hate, and that gets really out of hand. It really does. As I said, I've been there, I know what that's like. It's like you find a story, you find something to dislike, and you push it home, you keep repeating it in your head, you start to force that onto others as well. It gets really out of control. And having grown up around anger issues, I can tell you now that a lot of hatred just doesn't work well with trauma and, well, anger issues. Obviously, as you've seen there. But there's still so many problems around this, and this type of trend is not good. It's not good for humanity, it's not good for truth either, because as I have to say, the truth, not the company, because to be clear, that's a fucking joke. The company is fucking horrible, but the actual truth, the meaning of the word, in perspective, it really is a case where the truth here is just staying out of it sometimes is just better than keeping in line with it. So much like the trends, the moment you start to remove them, you remove one of the sources of anger and hatred. So you start to feel better, and I actually got inspired originally by a Yours Cast Rifles episode of all things. I was playing, for some reason, the Overwatch co-op event, I think. I mean, it's like the first, what was that one they did? I can't remember the name of it now. It's like the first one they did for Blackwatch, I believe. If you could call it that. I don't know. I think it was Blackwatch, I can't remember the underground organisation, the evil ones, kind of. I remember I was listening to the Trifles podcast during that event, and it made me realise Lewis was talking about a event where one of the people was Lewis, just to be clear, but he was talking about his father and how he would always get so cynical because of the news, and Lewis wanted to, I think, solve this problem for his father, because he was obviously getting to him and stuff. And he literally removed the news from his hands and said, like, no more of this. Like, no more reading, because it's obviously not doing you any favours, and he was fucking right. And his father improved, according to him. And I think Lewis himself even did it for a time, before he obviously went back to it, because you could probably tell. But even he did it for a while, and it definitely improved his mental health. Just based on obviously what he's shared. And as I did it myself, I started to realise as well, I was becoming less hateful towards everything, including arguments at the time that I believe, like anti-immigration, transphobia, even homophobia to an extent. And I started to believe less in those because the media wasn't telling me what to think. And this is the important thing. Because I was no longer listening to media, I started to listen to, obviously, what voices say. And I mean, it's a bit different these days with, like, Blue Sky, where the difference is, obviously, Blue Sky, you're less likely to see corrupt media on there. But back on Facebook and Meta, it was corrupt media, and that's basically all it was. And it was true back then, and it's still true now, obviously. And that's where you encounter that issue. So again, these things really sort of stoke the flames, I believe the term is. Been a while since I've ever used that, actually. But it does that. It really does that to you. It stokes the flames within you and even outside of you, because it also affects people around you too. Because if you watch the news enough, you start to become very hateful of it and start to just really dislike it. And it also distracts you from what can be real good journalism and actually positive news as well. Because when most news reports are about negative things, which this was back at the time, there was very few good things. In fact, I only remember about between 3 and 4% of the stories in trending being good, whereas Blue Sky probably had about 10 from recent memory, or 10% of good news. But, you know, that's like a stark contrast. But even then, the amount of negative news that you would see, and even neutral news itself, if that even existed, I can't even remember any news stories like that, but it really showed you the trend of hatred that these things have, that really do exist. So it's the same thing here with, obviously, the politics in the UK, and I'm surprised people don't actually talk about this. But I believe there is also potentially studies out there even going into it, like, let me look up, what does news do to your mind? Study, let's see. Okay, Mayo Clinic Press, apparently, but that's not a study, that's not a study, that's not a study. Okay, it's a bit useless though. Is that one? Can watching the news impact your mental health? No, that's not a study, but maybe they link to some. But I do have a feeling it is very closely linked, and I think that is what explains the issues today, where we see so much bigotry just all across the clock. All across the clock, across the map as well. And that's why it's almost unavoidable, that's why we see it so often. And also it's so problematic that it almost becomes infectious. And so when someone who's like more right-leaning, even though they're not actually right-leaning sometimes, they end up creating a divide, and that divide also creates a negative output from the people who are obviously witnessing it, and that's why you have people on the left who are equally or just as angry as you are, and that creates more issues obviously, and you set yourself up for failure as a result. And not many people realise that with sort of being on the right of the political spectrum, but you literally do set yourself up for failure. We're seeing it again in real time, we're seeing history repeat itself, because what media wants you to believe is that the world is in a terrible place, and the only way you can fix it is by, what do you know, siding with the billionaires, the ones who have all the money, whilst you have nothing. You don't have anything compared to them. And so the situation then becomes that, instead of the reality where we need to make an informed decision on these things, listen to other journalists and other media, such as independent people themselves, to get the story. And actually it reminds me, I looked up a protest recently. There's one in the UK, I can't remember what it's called now, the place. But it only came up with far-right protests rather than the majority where it was an anti-fascist protest. And I was just really confused. Like, I wasn't looking this up for a far-right commentary on this. And obviously it occurred to me that the way that YouTube works is that it seems to prioritise the bigotry, the really bigoted sources, and not to mention they're probably funded by that. So Google's probably corrupt in that sense, where they do promote those hateful like bits of content, which is shameful, honestly. And this is why you can't exactly do research anymore as well, even though I encourage it. But it's not that simple anymore, and there's so many like stepping stones for getting into it to find out the actual truth here. And it doesn't help when the sources are biased. It's much better to go with something like Navarro Media rather than Restore Britain or whoever the fuck reports things, even GB News. And that's one of the ways around it. As I said, and pretty much demonstrated anyway, the hatred just leads you to hate yourself and hate the world. And it's not beneficial to you in the slightest, no matter what. It is just not worth it. Not worth it at all to be this hateful and spiteful of people, let alone jealous, because that's a scenario I've seen as well. It happens a lot to quite a few specific people actually, in like on social media platforms. But there are so many jealous people when they see someone who does something right or is actually a good sort of leader or politician. There's obvious jealousy, and you can see that quite plainly. But of course, it leads to the ways I've countered the rise of bigotry, and one of the ways I did that was through changing the amount of content I watched through. Well, I don't know how to explain it. Basically, some of the content you watch online is also that same hatred and bigotry. So, for example, if you watch Twitch, as an example, if you watch Asmongold, or maybe, I don't know, it could even be Hassan Parker. I'm not dissing Hassan here, but you could be watching either one of those, and the problem is with some of their content is that it is just entirely hatred, although Hassan's less likely, but I'm pretty sure it does inspire some form of hatred. But depending on who you watch, because I want to try and give a balanced view here, you get a perspective from it where you start to believe what they say and start to follow what they say. And so you don't actually get a breath of fresh air in that space because they believe these specific things. As when God believes it's like God's gift to critical thinking, which he's not, because he doesn't actually use it. It's got another crazy thing about his content and what I've known from the past of watching him. It's also just dishonest as well. I'm not really sure about character attacks, I don't really agree with that, but his opinions on stuff can be a bit weird. But I guess a similar thing could be said about Hassan Piker, in all honesty. Because it can be controversial. It's like echo chambering your belief in something, and it's not a healthy thing to do. It genuinely is. What the fuck happened there? What the hell's going on with my phone? Just started playing the Twitch stream without fucking being open. That's weird. What a strange coincidence. Don't know what that's about. But anyway, the point is you need to spread your content. You need to find someone new. If it's making you negative, move on. That's my best advice. If you fucking hate the state of the world, if you hate immigrants, if you hate the lefties, go watch something else. Something more positive, more neutral, and you'll see for yourself what it's actually like. And I know this is with Twitch streamers, because I tend to go towards the more positive streamers and the ones that are the least negative. And I've ended up noticing a drastic difference where I can actually be happier than I used to be. And I wasn't a very happy person back in these anger days, as I'll call them. And you notice the difference immediately. So I went from watching, again, something like Hasmongold to watching individual Yogscast streamers, for example. And the Oscars are a great network of people. They try to stay politically neutral as well, and they're not a political channel. They're just gaming. But meanwhile, if you just only watch something like, I don't know, there was a terrible channel I used to watch called It's a Gundam or something. Fucking awful, I think it was. But also, that other dick, the quartering, that was it. But also, content like that is just not good for you. Drama channels and even news reports cannot always be good. Admittedly, you need to be in the know of things, but you need to balance it out. And that's the point I'm trying to make here. You can have the negative content, you can even know that what's going on in the world through whatever you watch. But you cannot absolutely focus on one single bit of content, even the ones that are just extremely positive, as I've said. Because having too much negativity is just gonna make you cynical, and too much positivity is gonna make you almost desensitized and almost corrupt in a way. It's strange how that works, but it does. And ironically, leads into another story actually about Lewis from the Oscars, as I said in the Triforce podcast. Obviously, he's appeared multiple times in other things. He is the main guy in the Orcs at the moment. But it makes me realise that because he's got so much money now and he's actually sort of doing things himself, like going into his own house and stuff, he bought his own house and lived supposedly somewhere quiet and peaceful. He's also expressing a lot of views which seem very strange and very much like he's almost entitled to things, and I'm noticing that trend because of just him have things going on in his life, I think. But it's a trend I notice when people start to get insanely rich, or not like Lewis is, but people do. They get insanely rich and they lose sight of humanity. They hang around too often with people who are obviously richer than them and then start to lose touch with reality. Well, look, it's the same way if you just prioritise greed over everything else. And admittedly, obviously, Oscars is probably the nicest network of people. If there's one person who's probably someone who could do more and obviously have to deal with hardships, it's probably Lewis, of all people. I hate to say it because I grew up watching the Oscars and I'm still really grateful for them. But Lewis is starting to show signs where he's out of touch with not really reality, but people. And his decision making can come across as almost like a corporate or business perspective other than anything else, and I don't know, it's getting a bit strange to me. That's sort of like a lesson in that. And I think the best thing you can do for yourself, obviously, is to basically cut your paycheck. If you're getting too much, you need to cut it. Simple as. And you redistribute it. You either give it to your employees or you give it to charity. You never know. There's some way you can address it. And it's probably healthier for you. What's going on with my fucking reminders? I set it for 10 minutes and it's reminding me 4 minutes. It's so dumb. So I need to get those out. Still taking antibiotics. See, again, anger and hatred is a thing. And those are just the ways I go out of it. And also just training myself mentally to try to find a bit more positivity in things. Even myself, which is weird as it sounds, I think self-hatred was one of my biggest problems. Even though I still feel like I'm somewhat worthless in life, I don't think that's ever going to go away. I at least can find positive things in my actions. Like I say, at least I'm trying to change the world. At least I'm trying to benefit humanity in different ways. And with like no strings attached, literally. Like, I'm not attached to this. I don't want to be viewed as some sort of hero or god. Like, nothing like that. I just want to be viewed as a ordinary human being. And yet, for some reason, still people call me selfish for that, which is just fucking ridiculous. I don't really get why there is that hatred as well. Why are you looking at positive things like this as though I'm the one who's in the wrong, when I've explicitly said that I just want peace and love, and that's all I ask for in this. And I've even seen it again with social media. If you look at more of a political perspective on things, you see someone like Zach Polanski, for example, in the Green Party, get tons of hatred for even posting about anything related to LGBTQ+. Like, he literally gets tons. I remember seeing a TikTok of his where he was talking about his experience in school being a gay person, also a gay child, and the amount of bullying he received for it. And it's horrific. Yet a lot of the comments were, for some reason, trying to push him down. They're trying to get him to feel afraid or something, or feel ashamed. Despite him saying that he's been bullied, and people saying also in the comments, what does this have to do with politics? It's everything to do with politics. If you paid attention, if you had the balance in your media when you were viewing it, you would see exactly why it's even being mentioned. Because when you take a neutral perspective to things and use facts to decide what you believe in, you start to have a different perspective on the world. And again, as someone who's came out of a bubble of hatred and also dishonesty, because that was a role in it as well. And the other big thing is I had traumatic moments in my life on top of hardships that were really hard to ignore. Depression, an issue I won't go into, but involved police. I've been there, and it's really difficult. It's something that you can learn from. And those were also the tipping points for realising I'm just like really fucked up. I've got depression, self-hatred, I've got low confidence. I also had that issue with the police again. And I wondered what I could do, how I could change my life for the better. And I started looking into ways to get around it, not necessarily like, like research, like you can do for sure, but more thinking around it. And what I realised from it, as well as help from, at the time, my girlfriend, obviously ex-girlfriend now, has been for 10 years now, but similar thing. But after some of that help as well, I started to realise a lot of the things in the world aren't what they seem to be. And the thing with like trending pages, the hatred, the hate mongering as I call it, and anger mongering, the whatever you call it, rage mongering, they all do not help at all. And one of the things I ask myself is, what do I actually want in the world? What's actually good for it? Because if I can't work, if I can't do anything right, and I can't really benefit the world in many ways, let alone make myself happy, then what is it for? What the fuck even is my purpose? And I realised quite soon after, when I hated seeing fighting between people, I realised that actually it's seeing violence that makes me want to stop it. Makes me want to stop violence. When I see so much negativity around now, I've realised the goal in the end is to find peace. Because I was thinking about God as well, thinking about religion. And I had the same realisations I've had for years. I can't prove that God is real. I can't even speak to God like some people claim. I can't even speak on behalf of God. And that led me to question what it is I can believe in. What can I do to ground myself and be a better person? To be more positive in life as well. Because people did it with religion. They did it for drug addictions, they did it for, even child abuse cases I've heard some about, but people have done it for different reasons. And it made me realise that actually the thing to derive from that wasn't that you can use religion to escape these things. It wasn't even escapism, which is a different thing entirely, although people do use it as escapism. It's simply the fact that you're grounding it to something, and the grounding technique is a thing that has existed for years, I believe. It's just very underutilised. And the way that I ground a lot of my issues, even to this day, is through grounding. I start to find ways to cope with things in my life, and it's not really a temporary band-aid, but rather something that gets stronger the more absorbed you are into the grounding. So I ground it to myself wanting to see a better world, rather than trying to follow something to distract myself. Even though it does work as well. But I followed different things, and religion also didn't agree with the things that I wanted to see in the world. Like, for example, I wanted people with mental disabilities, much like myself, to have proper sex lives. I wanted to see that there wasn't any war. I wanted to see so many things gone. I wanted to even see cooperation between people. And the only way that can even be achieved is through peace, through grounding as well. So grounding myself to find peace, essentially. And that was like a big deal. It's like the biggest realisation of my life. And I also viewed it as a way to redeem myself, but that was only secondary. What I really truly wanted in life was just peace. So I've taken the steps to do that, and it is really a big deal. That's how you do it. And I just don't understand how people can just constantly consume media that makes them negative. Much like the riots that appeared recently. It's like, it's crazy. Like, I don't know what to say about it. I've said so much already. I just find it a bit gross, really. But it's a shame, because I obviously see myself in a lot of these people. A lot of people out here are believing like fascist things. People who are believing in racism and anti-migration. And when I see that the human element is removed from these conversations, it becomes very clear that people don't really care about changing things for the better. They just care about one thing, and that's what I call the hate train, I guess. And that's all it comes down to. Which makes the claim about racism and Nazism, fascism, or whatever it is at this point, it becomes valid. Because that is what it is. And I used to be on that hate train only about 10 years ago. So again, I was just seeing a reflection of myself in some of these people. And I guess part of my discomfort when I see them in person or just through videos, even just comments, is because I see myself in there again, and I'm worried that I'll become that person again. To view someone as less than human is just unthinkable now. So again, it takes a lot of redemption. It takes a lot of thinking and like caring. And there is honestly nothing wrong with it. It's just something that humanity needs to come to understand is a thing. You need to really get on board with the idea that the world is not going to revolve around you either. So you have to do what you can to make it better for everyone else. So yeah, I don't know what else to add here, but it's quite long as a topic. So I think I'll end the episode here, because it's gone on for a while. It's probably one of the most important things I've ever talked about, actually. I think it almost makes this episode a must-watch, listen rather. It might even be the first topic. I don't know. As I said, I can only hope that people follow the right path from this point and understand that even despite the issues you have and even the past, the only way to make it right is by looking inwards and looking out for other people. Again, just taking yourself away from all that negative attention and media and putting yourself in the positive space, in the peaceful spaces for that matter. There was one other thing on this I wanted to mention too. I can't remember what it was now, which is really frustrating. Because I think it was equally as important too. I don't know, it's not coming back to me, which is really frustrating. Again, there's so many things you can figure out just by thinking to yourself and being away from, as I said, media. Because the media just doesn't help you. In fact, media is your enemy, and that's the thing I've noticed a lot. It's quite rare that you can actually trust it. And in the cases that you can, it's because there's actually good intentions behind it. But I think the warning sign that someone is going on that hate train is obviously discriminative beliefs or a complete phobia of something. Obviously a phobia that's created rather than inherent. But those are the reasons that I think it's a possible danger, and you need to catch it before you get any worse. Because I believe that's what we're seeing. We're seeing, 5 years of COVID taking a big toll on people's mental health, and the algorithms are saying a completely different narrative to any other media and saying that these are to blame and the others are not. Even though the media is obviously trying to stir up trouble, it's trying to stir up chaos and rage. And that is no good for us. In fact, we're not even supposed to be exposed to that much negativity. Another thing I sort of realised upon a response I got on one of my mental health sort of posts I made on Reddit is the fact that we're not supposed to be exposed to so much negativity in the world. We're not supposed to be exposed to that much death, destruction, and even just bad news. And I can actually see how that's a thing. I think you end up losing sight of everything when all that's in your sight is negativity and hatred. Again, bits of it are healthy, but too much, and it's just off the wall. It's just completely unjustified. Yeah, I haven't got anything else to add, but also if people have any questions, feel free to ask. It's kind of another reason why I'm here, because I do care. I want to change the world, and to save it for that matter. Obviously, I need the help of others to do that, and that's a big thing. I'm not even asking for money. Just asking for an ear, I guess, and that's it. But hopefully actions come from that, and the actions end up having a chain reaction. They actually work in our favour eventually. So yeah, I don't know what else to add, but that's it. So let's move. Actually, yeah, let's move on. You know, I have a theory upon seeing that the UK has finally intercepted a Russian shadow fleet thing. I'm not exactly sure what it is, but it just got me thinking. We're going to see a series of events at some point where the Prime Minister and likely also reform and restore politicians are going to flee the fucking country to hide in America. And my theory for this is obviously that they'll bought and paid for, or even fly to Russia, but you never know. Wherever they go, they're fleeing. And that's when we realise that there's something really wrong. The realisation that I had, though, is we're in a vulnerable position for a potential nuclear war. And I'm not like a military strategist or anything, and I know the impact of nuclear war can be very detrimental. The problem is, because we're open from several sides, and unfortunately Scotland and Ireland probably get the first blows in this case, which is frustrating. I think we deserve it more. Ireland, Scotland, they're alright. I just have to say that. But I get the feeling that we are just a nuclear test ground. They're trying to sow all this chaos, put us in the dark, especially with the social media bans and stuff, and age verification. They're trying to make us unaware of these surroundings, and fortunately, if you're stupid enough to submit the info for the social media stuff, then you're in a position basically as the same as before, if not worse, because your identity is out there. There's more dangers to you, and where you could have just gotten a VPN or even like learn how to change your location via like proxy, which I think is possible. I'm not 100% sure. But instead of doing that, you've just compromised your own fucking life in several ways. So this obviously means we're right before picking here in terms of a site for either military or nuclear war, and I think that is a concern. I think it is a likelihood. It's definitely not impossible, but even then, if it's not nuclear war, then it's a new testing thing. So it's going to be something like a stronger version of like the bombs, stronger version of the drones. There's so many different things it could be, especially in this day and age, or even like an AI. And because we're a remote island, obviously, technically speaking, then we're probably gonna I was just laughing at a fucking post I saw. But we're likely gonna see something else coming, and I reckon it could be like an AI bot. Again, hence the bloody the fact that we're a small island, kind of. Like we're in so much fucking danger here, in unbelievable ways, and I'm not 100% sure exactly what we can actually do about it. You know, it's a bit kind of like what. There's no certainty at this point in this stage of the world as it comes, and also the sad thing as well. There's probably going to be some discourse, assuming that's something that happens. There'll be some discourse where people around the world will take note, obviously. There's no brainer there, but people will be probably singing about it for years to come. Making songs, making art, even showing the whole terroristic state that Keir Starmer has put us in. And it just sucks, and you know, it makes me wonder as well, like, who really is to blame here. And I really think it is to do with the billionaire class more than anything else, because Keir Starmer was actually very competent in addressing the social justice issues that we have before he even got elected. And then he's suddenly given that up and gone in favour of authoritarianism, fascism, Nazism, everything. Everything that could go wrong is going wrong, essentially. And that's all because he works for the billionaire class now. So he was corruptible. And that much is obvious now. It wasn't obvious back then. I imagine there might be some things pointing towards that, but it's obvious now. Even then, we also can't disregard that there's possibly a factor where there may have been discussions alongside Israel and the US, and even the fucking bizarre case it could even be Russia. But there is very likely a case where they're in communications and there are threats from Israel. Obviously it's a trade thing with Israel, but US, same thing possibly. Even though we don't really have anything to trade, but we can be bought for, and again, the military bases and their presence no doubt add something there, add something of value to the US. So again, we're in great danger as it currently stands. And we're seeing ridiculous amounts of injustice. But again, it's hard to feel safe. And everything's going on in the UK just feels like it's a means to control the population. So to reduce numbers to minimise the real impact of what's about to happen, which is my other theory, and this is very conspiratorial. But the way the world is, it feels as though this is all part of the plan for the billionaire class, and once we're wiped out, we'll become an inhabitable island rather, for the billionaires. Because again, we're remote, and security would be fucking tight on that, wouldn't it? It'd be tighter because of the billionaires, and that's why they've also got all this wealth. I imagine Elon Musk probably has eyes ripe for the UK, as we've seen as well. Like, we've seen this. And it's just fucking ridiculous. This is a crazy thing. I just genuinely feel like there is a danger here. And I don't think that's solely wrong to believe here. It's just absurd what we're seeing in real time here. It's just absolute insanity. I don't know what to add though. It's just a theory, but obviously take it with a grain of salt. But unfortunately, on that nuclear bombshell, I have to end this podcast thing, talky thing. Why not just call it talky thing? Might be a good way to rename it episode 1000 if I ever get there. And anyway, thanks for listening. Not.